All right, so I'm just going to talk about. Let's see, am I talking on this computer?
Yes, but it has a wide range. So you
Oh,
posted
okay.
that.
I'm just going to talk about creating, making changes to your land use in GSHA. And the way you would do this, so mainly in WMS, is how you would do it is you end up creating several GSHA models, or you could create more than one GSHA model in WMS, but the main thing to keep in mind is that they all have to use the same grid. So you can't have more than one grid in WMS at this point, anyway. And so you use the same grid, but different index maps for each of your grids. And that's kind of the idea. You could also change the thing besides index maps. I mean, you could have different hydraulic structures. If you wanted one GSHA model with a hydraulic structure, like a detention basin, one without a detention basin, you can compare the hydrographs from those hydraulic structures. And then, anyway, there's several things you can change, but the idea is you have several models that all use the same grid. And so that's kind of what all this is talking about. And the way you do this is, so there's something we call scenario modeling or scenarios. And we used to have a workshop that you would create like 10 different scenarios, and you try to manage all these scenarios, one with a detention basin, another one with a change in land use. And you would try to manage all these different scenarios inside of WMS, but I think we got rid of that workshop, and now we just do one scenario at a time. It's just a little bit easier, but you could do as many scenarios as you want. But the way you create a scenario in WMS is first you can want to change the GSHA coverage, like add a hydraulic structure or something to the GSHA coverage or an embankment. Then you would duplicate that GSHA coverage. Then you duplicate your project, your GSHA project. And then you would assign your duplicated GSHA coverage, the one you changed, to your new project. And then you can make changes to index maps. If you make a change to an index map, you just need to copy it before you make changes. Because, like I said yesterday, WMS doesn't have an undo command. So you have to copy anything. You don't want to delete anything or change anything that you want to keep around. And so you copy an index map, and then you can assign that, modify it however you want, and then assign that new index map to the model. And the way you copy an index map is using this data calculator. But so that's kind of some things you could change. I mean, you could actually change anything. So then each of your models would have its own set of job control parameters. We call the window where you set the general modeling parameter job control window. So you can define separate job control parameters for each of your models, or whatever you want to change. The only thing that has to stay the same is the 2D grid. Has to stay the same for each of your scenarios. And so this is an example of several scenarios in my model, and these coverages that you see. So under the map data, it has these coverages here. And these coverages are 4 different scenarios. The top one is, I don't know what they stand for, but like this one, this GSHA DB is one with the detention basin. And this GSHA LU is, I think it's some kind of land use change. You could even have a separate GSHA coverage that has a wetland or something in it. You can model all these. And then all the scenarios show up down here in your under 2D grid data. These are the different models, and each model has its own job control, its own precipitation, its own set of index maps and also its own, when you run the models, they'll have their own solution also. So you can select those solutions, look at the depths, the hydrographs or whatever for each of your models. And so like you say, you have a single GSHA grid. The problem is, so sometimes your project explorer can get kind of big, so you can collapse each of these scenarios, so they don't take up as much room. There's a workshop that is, I'm not sure if you're going to be doing it today or you're going to be doing these specific ones. I think we have a new workshop that Steve worked on. It uses the Park City watershed, and there's several workshops, like I say. One is you can change the land use in a certain area from an undeveloped area to a residential area. You also try changing it to an industrial area. Another workshop, you define a detention basin somewhere in your model. Another workshop, you're defining a wetland in the lower portion of your watershed. There's another one where you're adding an infiltration basin in your model. And then there's another scenario where you add a buffer strip. So those are all different workshops. And so one thing is, if you have all these different scenarios, you can, like I say, you can have all these scenarios in a single WMS project. Then to run them, you can save all these scenarios as what we call a GSHA group. And I think this isn't anything that has to really to do with the GSHA model, but WMS has this feature that allows you to save a GSHA group file, which is just a group of GSHA runs, and then run all of these simulations as a single group. So we'll run all the simulations, kind of like what we saw with that AGWA online tool. You just run them all at once on your computer. And WMS, so this is the run GSHA group window. WMS will save all these models out and then run them all from WMS. And then you can look at the results from running all these models from WMS. And so the results, this is an example of what the results might look like. So you have this the hydrograph, the highest flow rate is after you change the land use to a residential area. So that's like the original hydrograph with no abatement measures. And then the yellow hydrograph is when after adding a detention basin. And anyway, so, and then I guess the orange hydrograph is actually the base scenario. That was before development, before any residential development, what would the hydrograph look like? And then, so they increased the hydrograph after you did the residential development. And then if you add a detention basin in, you can get the hydrograph back down to something that's more manageable. I'm not going to do the demonstration. There is a workshop.
Yeah.
Do we have any more slides? I guess not.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys.
No problem.